you have this new wild card in the space called generative AI, which
Right.
just before I thought, by the time something like this would happen, I would have already been done with my career. But somewhere like probably just the early stages of it, right? It's out there, and every day you go out, check it, some Twitter or something, right? You see this new insights. Just recently
Right.
I was seeing Claude as is showing signs of consciousness, right? It's by Anthropic. Yeah. So what is your take on this whole generative piece? Because the expectation from uh, especially from something like this was that it would make all mundane, more mundane and knowledge kind of work, uh,
Hmm.
faster and easier. Thereby, people with creativity or people in creative spaces are
Right.
the ones who will thrive. But it seems to be like, at least in the early signs, it seems to be operating a little differently. The
Right.
first set of people it's gone after are the ones video makers, the movies, the ability to generate these on the fly.
Right.
So, what is your take? How you're seeing it? What were your initial
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, I think so far I've not really seen any compelling use case of generative AI. Of course, there are certain areas like question answering and all that, which is much has much better customer experience than before, purely on the back of generative AI algorithms. But other than that, I don't really. I've been to many Gen AI events trying to understand what exactly are people trying to do with generative AI, and I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really impressed with what many people are trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I so at the core of it, generative AI is an algorithm that generates a sample from an unknown distribution. So
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know the distribution, you have a lot of data. You try to infer what that distribution is, and then
You
appropriately
sample from there. Yeah. Yeah.
algorithm to
Yeah.
generate a sample from it. Now, this core idea has been around since 1950s. Actually, this emerged in particle physics. Actually, particle physicists were the first Gen AI scientists
Okay.
as
Okay.
such. Um, so there have been applications in other areas, not necessarily computer vision and text. So now those applications in computer vision and text have emerged. Not quite sure whether these are the right areas for generative AI algorithms, but there could be other areas, like I said, particle physics, for instance,
Mm-hmm.
where it has already been very useful.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
think we will come up with new areas outside
Right.
of text and vision,
Right.
or text or images or content, where
Right.
this could be useful. Now, what happened in text, image, and content is as soon as it became very cheap to create new text, new images, and new content, uh, there is a glut in the market of new
Yeah.
content.
Yeah.
As a result of which, the value of content has gone down. At least
Yeah.
the AI
Yeah.
generated
Yeah.
content has come
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you create content after putting in the effort, it
Right.
still remains relevant even in today's market.
Right.
But if you don't put in the effort, you go to ChatGPT, put in a prompt, get an article, and upload it
Right.
on your website, that's not
Right.
going to create the same level of
Right. Right. Value.
excitement
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
value that
Right.
it
Yeah.
you would have otherwise thought.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. But I think you touched upon the right point that this technology has made at least these two artistic slash
mhm.
creative outlets little. It's kind of slashed their economic value, right?
Correct, correct.
It's substantially made it very deflationary effect on them, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
Exactly.
and yeah, but I think my personal take is that it's it seems to be doing decently well in very specific, narrow problem statements.
Hmm.
I think the overarching outcomes, as you mentioned, might happen underground or the background. Right? We might not
Correct.
even be aware of it. I remember one of my friends. I think they were trying to use Gen AI in certain ways to simulate material science.
Yes, yes,
Uh, they were trying to simulate better quality material science, right?
correct,
So
correct.
I think these are some areas where they might happen in the background and we might not be aware.
Right.
But I think at the consumer facing side of it, it seems it definitely hasn't had a very big impact per se right away, right? But
Right.
it's
Right.
definitely at some level played a deflationary role on content creation. And that's where I think that's when you realize, okay, now you have created 10 companies who are all building tools to, let's say, churn out content.
Yeah,
Suddenly everyone is doing it. So what do you do now? Like,
correct.
it's, yeah, this,
Yeah,
I think it's put this whole game theory space out there. Like, companies are
correct,
probably just
correct.
trying to solve their first step.
Right,
What
right.
if that happens? I think it's not clear what's the way forward, but
Yeah.
understood.
I
But
think, yeah.
mhm.
So building on that particular point, some areas where I do see generative AI being very useful, like outside of, like you mentioned about the materials
Right,
thing, right?
right, right,
Creating new
right.
materials. So there's another problem about generative AI, which is, let's say US bank. So a bank in the US also has an India office,
Mm-hmm.
and they somehow want to share customer data from the US office to India office. Now, the problem is that legal regulations do not allow you to share customer data from the US and send it offshore to Indian data centers.
Right,
So they have to generate samples of
right,
customers
right, right,
using Gen AI algorithms in
right,
the US, and then they can ship those data to India.
right,
So
right,
people know, okay, this is what the data set is going to look like.
right. You can build your models, test them,
Right, right.
then
Build
once.
a model, test them, and then ship it back to the US. So those are the areas where I think Gen AI will be more useful.
Right.
And unfortunately, nobody's, or at least I don't know who is working on it, because people tend to understand Gen AI is equal to LLM, but Gen AI is a technology about generating samples. And so you can
LLM is
generate,
a textual,
LLM is, yeah, just the text instantiation of that particular
right.
technology.